From Gainesville, Florida, site of the 1976 Gatornationals, the National Hot Rod Association presents Championship Drag Racing. Brought to you by Anheuser-Busch St. Louis, brewers of Budweiser. When you say Bud, you've said it all. And by English Leather, makers of men's fine toiletries. And by Fram, makers of oil, air, and gas filters, Fram windshield wipers, and auto light spark plugs.
The beautiful sunshine of Florida, Gainesville, Florida, just a short drive from Disney World. You couldn't ask for a better setting for a major championship drag racing event. The downtown area with its attractive mall has the look of the 70s and blends in nicely with the warmth and greenery all around. Gainesville was named after U.S. Army General Edmund Gaines and incorporated in 1869. It's a perfect melding of the traditional and the modern, each complementing the other. Gainesville, like many other areas in Florida, abounds with tranquil lakes. But ask a native to show you the pride of Gainesville, and chances are you'll find yourself on the campus of the University of Florida. It was founded in 1853, and since then has grown to a picturesque setting of over 1,000 acres, including a fine medical school, law, architecture, and almost 30,000 students. And we found in Gainesville more than a few drag racing fans in the warm Florida sunshine. The 7th Annual NHRA Gatornationals, Gainesville Raceway, Gainesville, Florida. What is a Gatornationals? It's over 600 race cars from throughout the United States and Canada, a total purse topping over $225,000. It's outstanding times, it's outstanding people, and you'll see them all here on our coverage of this Gatornationals Drag Racing Championships. I'm Dave McClelland. Joining me here at the Gatornationals and Gainesville Raceway, Frank Farino. Frank, we've seen some great racing so far.
We've seen some incredible racing so far. There's going to be more excitement to come. The crowds have been beautiful. The weather's been beautiful. I think Gainesville is a perfect spot for this little race. Big race, as a matter of fact. I think before this weekend is over, we're going to see an absolutely sensational race.
One of the things to look for, we've seen the first 5-second time ever here at Gainesville Raceway, and in final eliminations, which we'll be covering here today, I'm sure you'll be seeing more of them. Let's watch now as the action gets underway.
Starting that action with the first round of Top Fuel Eliminator, the pairing of Gary Beck of Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, matched up against Herm Peterson from Paulsbo, Washington. Gary Beck, being pushed back after his burnout, was the man that recorded the new low elapsed time ever for Gainesville Raceway at 5.92 seconds. Peterson and Beck in round number 1, Top Fuel Eliminator. Something obviously going wrong with Herm Peterson's car, and Gary Beck annexes the first win of this 1976 Gatornationals. We see it here replayed in slow motion. Beck's elapsed time a fine 6.17 seconds at 231 miles an hour plus. Former national champion and last year's Spring Nationals champ Marvin Graham out of Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, is pitted against Steve Stevens from Houston, Texas. Here in slow motion, let's take a look at Marvin Graham doing a burnout. The purpose of the burnout, to heat the tires, to get them as hot as possible to provide the best traction for these nearly 2,000 horsepower Top Fuel dragsters. Steve Stevens going up in smoke off the starting line, and it's Marvin Graham through the finish. His elapsed time, 6.15 seconds at over 222 miles an hour. Here in slow motion, take a look at the driving job Steve Stevens does to keep from crossing the center line or going into the guardrail. All over his lane of the racetrack, Marvin Graham straight and true to annex the win in round number 1 of Top Fuel Eliminator. The next matching, Paul Longnecker on the near side. On the far side, Pat Dakin driving Gary Rupp's car out of Miamisburg, Ohio. Longnecker from Arcanum, Ohio. Both cars smoking the tires. Paul Longnecker recovering first, and it looks like he blows a motor as he enters the traps. Paul Longnecker taking the win over Pat Dakin. We'll show you in slow motion exactly what happens as both cars leave the starting line together. The rear wheels losing traction at just about the same point. Paul Longnecker recovering first, driving the car. He now is passing Pat Dakin, and there goes the motor. An expensive win for Paul Longnecker, 644 at over 208. Chief starter Buster Couch watching the next pair coming to the starting line. Lee Weller from Westminster, Maryland, driving for Jim and Allison Lee, matched up against the winner of the 1976 NHRA Winter Nationals, Frank Bradley from Napa, California. The Christmas tree starting system with the pre-stage lights and then the staging lights done by light beams across the starting line with photoelectric cells. As the wheels enter into those beams, the lights come on. The drivers know it's ready. Something going wrong with Lee Weller, and a motor blowing on Frank Bradley's car. He keeps it under control and takes the win. But a lot of oil coming out the back of the motor. Lee Weller coasting to a stop. The crew of Jim and Allison Lee coming up to put the push bar in, and will be taking the car of Lee Weller off the track. As they leave the starting line, you can see Lee Weller, there it goes, right there, the motor backfiring through the supercharger. And here comes Frank Bradley as he takes an easy win with a 6.75 second elapsed time. In the far lane from Minot, North Dakota, Bob Struckness set top speed of the meet at over 248 miles an hour in qualifying. He is matched up against John Wiebe on the near lane from Newton, Kansas. What a driving job by Struckness as something going wrong with his engine. A trouble-plagued first round here at this 1976 Gator Nationals. Struckness takes the win. But something going wrong in the motor. Let's watch it in slow motion as he also does a great driving job to keep that car under control. Wiebe apparently having a bit of a lead at this point, but he also loses some problems, or has some problems in the drivetrain, as Bob Struckness very close to losing control. There you saw the motor explode as it backfired. Pieces coming out behind the car. He coasts through to a stop to a 6.62 second elapsed time at only 157 miles an hour, almost 100 miles an hour slower than his qualifying speed. In the far lane, Clayton Harris from Moulton, Alabama. In the near lane, Bob Edwards out of Union Bridge, Maryland. And it's a red light start for Clayton Harris. That means he leaves the starting line too soon. And not only that, he has a lot of trouble down the finish line. The motor going away for Clayton Harris. Bob Edwards, it appeared, crossed the center line. We'll have to take a look at that for sure, as our slow motion replay will show exactly what happened. And he did cross the center line. Clayton Harris has been reinstated. He lost automatically by virtue of the red light. There goes Clayton Harris's motor. There goes Bob Edwards across the center line. And now a big ball of fire will come out as Clayton Harris explodes a supercharger at mid-track, but takes the win to move to round number 2. The NHRA Safety Safari on the scene, checking out, making sure everything okay. Clayton Harris looking over his car. He was uninjured. Here is the Chevrolet-powered dragster of Jim Booker from Westchester, Ohio. He is matched up against Richard Tharp in the Candies and Hughes dragster from Houma, Louisiana. Richard Tharp with a big lead, but something goes awry as Jim Booker, 6.50 seconds at 181 miles an hour, takes the win over Richard Tharp. The last pair in round number 1, James Warren from Bakersfield, California, against Larry Pettit from Mogador, Ohio. Warren was runner-up to Frank Bradley at the recent Winter Nationals held out of Pomona, California. Both cars inching into the starting light beams. The green light comes on and they're both off. A bit of smoke for James Warren. but he pulls away from Larry Pettit to take the win. James Warren, one of the best drivers on the West Coast, making his first trip to the East and the first time ever at Gainesville Raceway, annexes this first round win in Top Fuel Eliminator, 6.23 seconds at over 229 miles an hour. Larry Pettit also recording a 6.23 second time, but losing by about 1 car length. We'll be back with more racing action from the Gatornationals in just a moment.
What else can I say? It's the NHRA.
Moving now into the first round of Funny Car Eliminator, it is Raymond Beadle driving the Blue Max out of Dallas, Texas. He is matched against Granada Hills, California's Bob Pickett, driving the Mickey Thompson U.S. Marine Grand Am Pontiac. Funny cars utilizing much the same drivetrain as the Top Fuel dragsters, except they're covered with fiberglass replica bodies of late model American cars. Beadle smoking the tires off the line, and it's Pickett in an upset win in a close race. Bob Pickett taking the win. He turned a 6.57 second elapsed time. That's from a standing start over that quarter-mile distance. 6.69 the losing time for Beadle. And here on slow motion, you can see why he lost it. Right there, the tires losing traction, giving Pickett just the chance to get ahead and hold that lead through the finish line at over 225 miles an hour. Johnny White of Channelview, Texas, backing his Mustang-bodied car up. You see here the parachute pack containing the parachute, helping to slow these cars from their over 225-mile-an-hour run. White is against Stan Bowman from Canton, Ohio. Bowman in the far lane, White in the near lane. Bowman losing traction, White getting close to the guardrail. He backs out of it, then pushes the Mustang through to take the win at 6.84 seconds. Drag racing appealing to young and old alike. Drag racing is bracketed much the same as a basketball tournament where you have various rounds. There are 16 cars in each of the 3 pro categories of Top Fuel, Funny Car, and Pro Stock. That means 4 rounds of racing. We're now in the first round of Funny Car. Here's Tom Brock in the Castronova Brothers custom body car from Utica, New York, matched against Gary Bergen, the low qualifier from Stanton, California. Bergen recording a 6.29 second elapsed time in qualifying. Bergen into a wheel stand. He has to back out of it, and the win goes to Tom Brock, and Brock turns a good 6.39 second elapsed time at over 224 miles an hour. Here in slow motion, you see Gary Bergen, the front wheels going in the air. He very wisely shuts it off, or the car could go much higher than that. Bouncing very hard as it comes back down, and that is just enough to let Tom Brock go by and hang on a good run to take the win in first round of elimination. The 1975 world champion, Don the Snake Prudhomme from Granada Hills, California. He is the 2-time champion here at the Gatornationals. He is the defending champion. In 1975, he won 6 out of 8 major NHRA titles. Prudhomme is matched against Dennis Fowler's Sundance, Trip Shoemake driving from Phoenix, Arizona. The burnout, much the same as with the Top Fuel dragsters, is designed to heat the tires to give as much traction as possible, as these motors will put out over 1,500 horsepower and propel these 1,800-pound cars through the quarter mile from a standing start in elapsed times nearing the 6 flat range at speeds over 230 miles an hour. Prudhomme's car, a replica of a 76 Monza, as is Trip Shoemake's. And it's a red light start for Trip Shoemake, and he shuts it off, knowing he is defeated, and Prudhomme just sort of eases it through at 6.95 seconds. To move into round number 2. Here is the 1974 world champion, Cheryl Greer from Warner Robins, Georgia. His competitor, Little John Lombardo from Sherman Oaks, California. And Lombardo up in smoke off the starting line as Cheryl Greer lays down a good run at 6.39 seconds at over 205 miles an hour to take the win. TV Tommy Ivo out of Burbank, California. Only the second major championship event for Ivo in his funny car. He formerly campaigned at Top Fuel Dragster. Ivo is racing Al Sagrini from Richmond, Virginia in the mighty Monza of Bill Levitt. Ivo driving the 76 Dodge. Very close racing here thus far at this 76 Gatornationals, both in qualifying and in the racing we've seen in first round of Top Fuel and Funny Car. And there's a close one, pulling it out at the very end. Tommy Ivo, 6.52 seconds. The next pair on the starting line, the revolution of Ed the Ace McCulloch. He's on the near lane. In the far lane, Tom Hoover from Minneapolis, Minnesota. Hoover holding a lead all the way through from start to finish. Takes the win, 6.47 seconds at 209 miles an hour. 6:57, the losing time for Ed McCulloch, and a dejected crew member heads back to the truck and the long trip back home to Fresno, California. You can see Hoover moving just very quickly off that starting line, taking a bit of a lead in the middle of the course. As our slow motion camera carries him through to the finish line, so he has about a full car length daylight lead over Ed the Ace McCulloch. The last pair in round number one, Bill Shifsky's car, driven by Topper Kramer from White Bear Lake, Minnesota, against Jacksonville, Florida's own Larry Fullerton. Fullerton, a former Californian, now living in Jacksonville, just a few miles away from Gainesville. A beautiful Trojan horse Mustang, too. They leave the line together. Fullerton running into some problems. Topper Kramer streaking away for the win at 6.70 seconds at over 226 miles an hour. Frank went down into the pits and asked some of the people here at the Gatornationals what they found the most exciting.
I don't know, it's just exciting. I like things that go fast.
I like the cars mostly. I like to look at, especially the rails.
The way those tires expand up when they take off, they really go.
It's the first time I've ever attended anything like this, and it's really an experience, really.
I wouldn't get out there and do it.
I traveled 1,500 miles, come down here for this. It's just something different. A lot of people, everybody getting together, having a good time.
They may be fast, but they sure are good.
Back in 1951, drag racing was on the abandoned airports and the streets of Southern California, but has progressed into this nationwide panorama of excitement that is professional drag racing. And one man most responsible for this is the president and founder of the National Hot Rod Association, Wally Parks. Wally, I'm sure that this 7th annual Gatornationals has got to be a gratifying experience.
We couldn't be happier, Dave. Since this is the second major national meet and the start of our 1976 Winston World Championship Series, we have been so fortunate in the fact that we've got the world's most ideal weather for it, and I think probably the most ideal audience because a very large percentage is tourists here in Florida. And it just seems to be a happy meet that is just unfolding in a manner that we didn't even dream of. It's great.
When we talk about tourists, we also not only have to consider nationwide audiences, but now worldwide audiences. And one of the guests here at this Gatornationals Drag Racing Championships, Mr. Larry Ormsby, who is Chairman of Honor of the Australian National Drag Racing Association. Larry, a pleasure to have you with us here. And how do you react to this kind of drag racing?
Oh, well, having seen 10 years of drag racing in Australia, I come across here and I become astounded at the depth and intensity of the sport. You'd speak internationally, well, Australia, I think, would rate second as the number 2 international country that's competing in drag racing, followed by, I'd say, England and South Africa, Wally.
Yes. How do you rate Australian drag racing at the moment compared to U.S.?
In a competition form, we're probably about 7/10 of a second slower. Our top fuel cars are doing 6.6s, 212, 220 mile an hour.
Wally, do you ever anticipate international competition teams from the U.S. going to Australia and vice versa?
I think we do. In fact, the matter in 1964, the National Hot Rod Association took 10 cars and teams over to England and helped establish the racing over there. And I think we're going to expand on that. Also, I think we may have overlooked Canadian drag racing in our credits here, and that's because of the fact that we consider our racing as North American racing and it's the United States and Canada combined.
One of the top Canadian racers is low qualifier here at the 76 Gatornationals, Gary Beck of Edmonton. 5 categories of sportsman competition. Battled it out here at the 76 Gatornationals, and we start with stock eliminator. In the near lane, driving the 74 Pinto, Tom Ryder of Trenton, Michigan. He is against the 71 Pontiac Le Mans of Rock Running from Lapeer, Michigan. Sportsman category racing in 4 of the 5 categories is handicap racing, where one car gets a physical head start. Here the Pinto of Tom Ryder has the big lead by virtue of the handicap, and he holds on to the win at 15.63 seconds. Stock eliminator, basically as it is described, mostly stock type cars with very few allowable modifications. The next step up the ladder is super stock. That's what's running now. In the near lane, Anthony Sierri from Plainfield, New Jersey, getting an automatic win in his 66 Chevelle wagon as John Ligenfelder red lighting away his chance for the win. Sierri turning at 12:12 elapsed time at 109 miles an hour. Ligenfelder, though he got to the finish line first, left a red light at the starting line. That an automatic disqualification for John Ligenfelder. Here in slow motion, you can see the lane on the left-hand side of the track. The red light comes on. Ligenfelder with the loss. The next class in sportsman category racing is modified eliminator. Here is Pete Smith from South Houston, Texas. He drives a 69 Chevy 2. His competition in the near lane, 66 Chevy 2, is Cotton Perry from Ringgold, Georgia. Again, watch the Christmas tree and the staggered start where the green light comes on for one lane before it does for the other. And another red light start. This time it is Pete Smith from Houston, Cotton Perry taking the win. Perry getting there first at 10.70 seconds at 125 miles an hour, and that, by the way, is a 6-cylinder powered car. Competition eliminator, the next step up the ladder, and quite a variety of race cars. Dragsters, altered cars. This is the A Econorail dragster. It uses an automatic transmission and 1 4-barrel carburetor from Santa Ana, California, Doug Dye. His competition, the car is a D altered. That is the class it runs in. Basically a 74 Vega with quite a few modifications to it. The Martin brothers from Baytown, Texas, Raymond Martin doing the driving. Again, a handicap start where one car will leave first. That will be Raymond Martin. Let's watch. The Christmas tree begins the countdown for Martin and then for Dye. A big head start for Raymond Martin, but now the dragster starts to come on. It's very, very close, and at the finish line, it's Doug Dye there first with an 8.12 second elapsed time. This is worth taking a look at again in slow motion. And here we see Raymond Martin with his big lead. Here comes Doug Dye catching up just at the first timing light and crossing the finish line just a wheel length ahead of Raymond Martin. The top of the category in sportsman racing is Pro Comp. It is a 1 amber, a heads-up race. This is Ken Veeney in the far lane with a funny car from Wadsworth, Ohio. His competition, Bill Wallace, who had some problems. He was driving the dragster. Ken Veeney, your Pro Comp winner. Some of the racers weren't quite so lucky as to make the finals, but no one was injured seriously here at the Gatornationals. Stacy Shields of Indianapolis, Indiana, had his car go out of control during Pro Stock qualifying due to a broken suspension member. Frank Farino was on the scene as Stacy came from the car.
Stacy, the most important question, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing fine.
What went through your mind? Was there any moment where you panicked and you thought, my God, this may be it?
No, NHRA usually stay up on their safety factors. They don't let you race hardly unless your car's really up to par. So my shoulder harness, seat belt, and everything, my crouch, the whole thing. And when the car started flipping, I stayed in the seat.
I want to wish you good luck, and I hope you can get that thing. Are you going to be able to rebuild that, or you start over again?
We'll probably start all over again.
Good luck to you.
Thank you very much.
We'll be right back.
Pro Stock Eliminator picking up the action in the second round. Here is Richie Zool from Lindenhurst, Long Island, New York. His competition from Fridley, Minnesota, Warren Johnson, both drivers. The wheel of the big block Camaros, and a close race. At the finish line, it is Warren Johnson, 8.78 seconds, speed over 156 miles an hour. The losing time, 8.83. These are the most sophisticated, full-bodied, stock car type drag racing vehicles in the world. Dave Canners in the far lane. He's driving the American Motors Hornet, matched up against High Point, North Carolina's Roy Hill. Canners hailing from Troy, Michigan. The start, all important in this category as it is in all classes of drag racing. Roy Hill in the near lane, Dave Canners in the far lane. Let's watch and see if you can determine who leaves the starting line first. Dave Canners, it appears, out first on Roy Hill. At the finish line, it's going to be very close. Dave Canners by just about a wheel length, recording an 8.88 second elapsed time. The losing time by Roy Hill was an 8.84. So that means that Dave Canners did leave the starting line first, as each lane of the racetrack has its own separate timing equipment, and that's how close it was at the finish. Here is the Monza of Bill Grumpy Jenkins, driven by Larry Lombardo of Malvern, Pennsylvania. His competition, another Monza, Shelby Jester from Abilene, Texas. The Monzas using the smaller Chevrolet engines than their Camaro counterparts. A red light start for Shelby Jester gives the win automatically to Larry Lombardo, but he's not backing out of it. Neither is Jester. 8.81 seconds, the winning time for Larry Lombardo. The final race in round number 2 action in Pro Stock Eliminator in the near lane from Calverton, Virginia, the big block Camaro of Lee Edwards. In the far lane, the world champion, defending world champ Bob Glidden from Beech Grove, Indiana, driving the Pinto. Another tremendously close race. It's Bob Glidden there first, 8.87 seconds at 154.63 miles an hour. NHRA Championship Drag Racing attracting a 56,000 plus crowd here in 4 days of drag racing at this 76 Gatornationals. Championship Drag Racing, one of the most popular of all spectator sports throughout the world. Funny Car Eliminator round number 2 in the near lane, Bob Pickett in the Mickey Thompson car. His competition, Tom Hoover. Sitting patiently, waiting for the green light, then exploding into action. Bob Pickett in the near lane has a bit of a lead. And about a 1 car length lead gives him the win at the finish line. His winning time, 6.65 seconds, 221 miles an hour. The losing time, less than a 1/10 of a second apart, 6.74. The losing time for Tom Hoover at over 220 miles an hour. Here they are in slow motion at half track. Pickett with about a car length lead, and he holds that through the timing traps and takes the win in round number 2 action. Cheryl Greer from Warner Robins, Georgia, the Mustang-bodied car. Here's the Dodge of Tom Prock. These the Castronova brothers. They hail from Utica, New York, and here in Gainesville, Florida, the weather absolutely magnificent. Beautiful sunshiny day. Overflow crowd watching as Tom Brock goes up in smoke, and it is Cheryl Greer taking an easy runaway victory in round number 2. He recorded a 6.40 seconds at over 207 miles an hour. The next pair, burnouts completed. It's Tommy Ivo in the far lane. That's TV Tommy Ivo, former dragster racer, now converting to a funny car. For 1976, this is his second major event. His competition, driving Bill Shifsky's car, is Topper Kramer. Both cars now staged. The green light comes on. And it is Topper Kramer with a bit of a hole shot. Oh, what a close race. Tommy Ivo just pulling it out in the last eighth of a mile, as the hole shot definitely appeared to go to Topper Kramer. Let's watch. Dancing off the starting line is Kramer, what appears to be about a half a car length lead. But here comes Tommy Ivo in the slow motion replay with a half a car length victory at the finish line at 6.49 seconds. The losing time, 6.56 seconds. The final pair in this second round of Funny Car Eliminator, Don the Snake Prudhomme in the near lane. In the far lane, Johnny White. White with problems, Prudhomme an easy run. But a lot of smoke out of Prudhomme's car, indicating some burned pistons. 6.45 seconds at only 192 miles an hour. Prudhomme's got some work ahead of him. James Warren versus Gary Beck, two of the finest. Warren plagued with the flu, came down sick here just a couple of days ago at the start of qualifying on Thursday, and he's battling the flu, and this time he's battling Gary Beck. Two great drivers. Top Fuel Eliminator round number 2. It is James Warren taking the win over Gary Beck, the low qualifier. Maybe a bit of an upset as the Ridge Route Terrors, runner-up at the Winter Nationals, continue their march, hopefully, towards the winner's circle. Both cars going up in smoke, as you see here on the slow motion replay. Warren recovering quickly to a 6.19 second at over 234 miles an hour. Beck's losing time, 6.31 at 223. Paul Longenecker from Arcanum, Ohio in the near lane. He is matched up with Frank Bradley. Bradley, the winner over James Warren at that Winter Nationals Championship held just about a month ago out at Pomona, California. Bradley from Napa, California, one of the many outstanding drivers in the state of California, making his first trip to the East Coast and this 7th annual NHRA Gator Nationals. Paul Longenecker, he hails from Arcanum, Ohio, one of the many strong cars located in the Midwestern part of the United States. Drag racing, of course, starting on the West Coast back about 25 years ago. And for many years, the West Coast held the innovative lead over the rest of the country. But today, anywhere you look, there are competitive cars and top-notch racers. Frank Bradley against Paul Longenecker. Longenecker up in smoke. And Bradley, smoke pouring out of the exhaust pipes as he crosses the finish line, but he takes the win. 6.10 seconds. Low elapsed time of the round thus far. Speed of 217 miles an hour. Here in the replay, we see Longenecker up in smoke. Bradley recovering very quickly. He goes through at 217 miles an hour. Longenecker tried to catch him, but turning 231 miles an hour to no avail. Here's Marvin Graham. He's the former national champion from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. He won the Spring Nationals a year ago. He has an easy run this time as his competitor Bob Struckness, exploding a motor in the first round of competition, unable to return. Graham making the necessary bye run. Turns a 6.22 seconds at 238 miles an hour plus. The other pairing in round number 2 would have pitted Jim Booker against Clayton Harris. Clayton Harris, you saw earlier, exploded a motor. He also unable to return for the round. Booker on his single at 6.18 seconds, 225 miles an hour. We'll be back in just a moment. One of the coveted awards at the 76 Gator Nationals, the English Leather Best Appearing Car Award, going to Tom Brock and Fred Castronova.
Are
Semi-final action in funny car and pro stock. Some of the greatest names in drag racing assembled here at the 7th Annual NHRA Gator Nationals. It'll be Shiro Greer from Warner Robins, Georgia. He's the man that won the 1974 World Championship, matched up against Bob Pickett, driving the U.S. Marine car. The other side of the bracket finds the 1975 World Champion, Don the Snake Prudhomme. He is pitted against TV Tommy Ivo. In pro stock, Larry Lombardo driving for Bill Jenkins up against Bob Glidden. Dave Canners and the American Motors Hornet, the big block Camaro of Warren Johnson, his opponent. And this is the semifinal round of Pro Stock Eliminator. Here in the Tower Lane or near side is Dave Canners driving the Maskin & Canners Hornet X, matched against Fridley, Minnesota's Warren Johnson in the big block Camaro. Two of the finest pro stockers in the country here at the 76 Gator Nationals. A good lead by both cars. At the finish line by more than a car length, Warren Johnson. He recorded an elapsed time of 8.78 seconds to the losing time of 8.84 for Dave Canners. The front wheels coming off the ground as they leave the starting line. Warren Johnson, your winner here in the semifinals of Pro Stock. The next pair in the Tower Lane, Bob Glidden. His competition, Larry Lombardo, driving for Bill Jenkins. And the world champion down to defeat, Larry Lombardo, the winner, 8.74 seconds to a losing 8.83. Lombardo by a car length over Bob Glidden. Funny car eliminator, semifinal racing. TV Tommy Ivo in the near lane. His competition, a longtime competitor, Don Prudhomme. Here we see a slow motion of the burnout by TV Tommy. The rear wheels growing, the tires growing from the centrifugal force. 1,800 horsepower plus under the Dodge-bodied car of Tommy Ivo. Don Prudhomme using the Monza body. Laying down a path of rubber, the crewmen backing up both cars into those tracks. Provide the most traction to allow these cars to record the outstanding times and speeds over a standing start quarter of a mile. Don Prudhomme far lane, Tommy Ivo near lane, both off together. Prudhomme with a little smoke, a close race. Prudhomme again burning pistons, it looked like, at the finish line. But a burned piston or two doesn't count when you win the race and go into the finals for the third year in a row at the Gator Nationals. Here, the slow motion replay. You see both cars leaving the line very strongly. Prudhomme smoking the tires. He turned to 6.45 seconds, the losing time of 6.55, and that couples up to a little over a car length at the finish line, a tenth of a second apart, the two cars, Don Prudhomme and Tommy Ivo. The body up, that's how the drivers get in the car, by the way, and the crewman starts the engine for Shiro Greer, the 1974 world champion out of Warner Robins, Georgia. He is racing against Bob Pickett, driving Mickey Thompson's Grand Am Pontiac from Granada Hills, California. Both Greer and Pickett making their best showings here at the Gator Nationals in a number of national event races. The far lane, Shiro Greer. In the Tower Lane or near lane, Bob Pickett. East versus west with Greer representing Georgia. Pickett out of Granada Hills, California. And it's no race at all. Shiro Greer the win, 6.50 seconds at over 206 miles an hour. The semifinals of Top Fuel. One side of the bracket finding a matchup of two West Coast superstars. James Warren and Frank Bradley in a rematch of the Winter Nationals final run where Frank Bradley defeated James Warren. In the other half of the bracket, it is Jim Booker driving the only Chevrolet in the field. He's matched up against the former national champion Marvin Graham from Oklahoma City. This is semifinal Top Fuel racing at the Gator Nationals. And it's James Warren in the near lane against Frank Bradley. Two of the best West Coast drivers traveling all the way to Gainesville, Florida to meet here in the semifinals. A great race as James Warren pulls it out in the last eighth of a mile. As you can see, just a car length separating them at the finish. Warren recording a 6.20 second elapsed time at over 239 miles an hour. In the near lane, the Chevrolet-powered dragster of Jim Booker against Marvin Graham. Graham with the big lead, and something lets go, and it's Jim Booker with the win into the finals, 6.40 seconds. Frank Farino down at Don Prudhomme's pit.
Dave, we're down here with Don Prudhomme and getting ready for the finals. There is no way we're going to get a chance to talk to Don. As you can see, he's surrounded by Ed Pink. Ed McCulloch is here helping, a crew from the Blue Max, trying desperately to put Don's car back together again. It looks like a couple of pistons went. It's been an uphill fight for Don ever since the competition began, and it looks like if he does get into the finals, it is going to be uphill right up until the very end. Okay, we're coming up to the finals in Top Fuel, and the story usually is how well is the car holding up. The story for James Warren is how well is James Warren holding up. Jim, you've not been feeling too good.
No, I think I caught the flu last night, and boy, it really knocked me down.
One of those rounds, a couple of rounds back, they had you up there, they were ready to get you in the staging lane, and all of a sudden they pulled you out of the car.
Yeah, we sat there too long, and I was afraid I might not be able to make it. That's too hot, so.
Well, you ran a 6:20, 2:39 in that semifinal round. You're going against Jim Booker, and Booker's got pneumonia, they say.
Well, I don't know. Maybe our cars are good. Two drivers are sick.
Here we are with the final of Pro Stock Eliminator. Larry Lombardo of Malvern, Pennsylvania, matched up against Warren Johnson of Fridley, Minnesota, a pair of Chevrolets. Johnson utilizing the Camaro body and the big block engine. Lombardo driving for Bill Jenkins, using the Monza body with a smaller motor. They leave the line together. It's anybody's race to the finish line. It is Larry Lombardo, your 1976 Gatornationals champion. With the wheels in the air, Lombardo comes off the line on his way to a new national elapsed time record of 8.716 seconds, over 155 miles an hour in the Gatornationals championship. Moving to the finals of Funny Car Eliminator, pitting two world champions. Don Prudhomme, the 1975 champion, at the wheel of the U.S. Army Monza against Cheryl Greer from Warner Robins, Georgia. He was the 1974 NHRA world champion. East versus West, inching into those staging beams, getting ready to go for the championship. Funny Car Eliminator at the Gatornationals. It's Prudhomme off first. Cheryl Greer crossing over the center line and having troubles. Don Prudhomme streaking to another victory, his third in a row at the Gatornationals. Don Prudhomme, 6.24 seconds at over 236 miles an hour, annexing another national title and moving him well into the lead for the points race. Frank is with Don Prudhomme.
Well, you can see a happy man. Don, one quick second. Funny car champion, 1976 Gatornationals. It was an uphill fight from the word go.
It sure was, but yeah, just like anything else, you know, you never give up, no matter what's happening out there on the drag strip, even when you're behind or whatever, until that finish light comes on. No one has won the race.
Here it is, the final in Top Fuel Eliminator. The Chevrolet of Jim Booker. You see him here, sitting encased in the roll cage. He's from Westchester, Ohio. His competition all the way from Bakersfield, California. They call them the Ridge Route Terrors, the team of Warren and Coburn, lanky Jim Warren. They're staged and they're off. Backing out as both cars losing traction, it's James Warren across the finish line first, taking the win. Jim Warren over Jim Booker, 6.24 seconds. The time for James Warren from Bakersfield, California, winning the 1976 Gatornationals. His speed over 236 miles an hour. Let's go again to Frank Farino.
James Warren, Top Fuel winner, 1976 Gatornationals, and it was a touch and go there whether you were going to last up to the final round.
Well, the car was in good shape. I just hope I was half as good. It'd be all right.
It was a 6:24. Fantastic time for what's been happening here all day.
Yeah, we had a lot of trouble in the starting line all week. Just never could get it off. It's had too much power. Didn't want to change it. You got to be happy, if not well. Yeah. I already feel better.
And so he should. James Warren, your 1976 Gatornationals top fuel champion. A tremendous crowd, over 56,000 for 4 days of great racing. Some tremendous performances. National records, Larry Lombardo, new ET record. Bob Glidden setting the Pro Stock mile-an-hour record. Gary Beck's first 5 ever at Gainesville. Don Prudhomme's track record 6:24. On the human side, Iron Man James Warren. Well, that's it from Gainesville. This is Dave McClelland for Frank Farino saying so long from Gainesville.
The NHRA Gatornationals has been brought to you by Fram, makers of oil, air, and gas filters, Fram windshield wipers, and auto light spark plugs. And by English Leather, makers of men's fine toiletries. And by Anheuser-Busch St. Louis, brewers of Budweiser. When you say Bud, you've said it all. Promotional consideration provided by Datsun, the official car of the National Hot Rod Association. This has been an NHRA